Good morning, Royal We family. I'm so happy that you're here. In this video, we're going to talk about what would Jesus do in dealing with narcissistically abusive people. Now, before we do, if this is your first time joining the Royal We, be sure to subscribe, like, and hit the bell notification so that you don't miss any future Royal We content. Also, I encourage you to visit www.jointheroyalwe.com. This is the official Royal We website. Through the website, you can access all things, including the Facebook support group. The support group is available for you on a daily basis, and it's full of people who are ready to help you out. Also, through the website, you can schedule your one-on-one appointment with me to help walk you through some of the issues you will face coming out of narcissistic abuse. Now, let's talk about what would Jesus do. Now, we've all heard this slogan, this token phrase. Even narcissistically abusive people use the phrase, "What would Jesus do?" Anytime you confront them on their bad behavior or try to call them out for their name calling or cussing, or you try to leave an aggressive, hostile situation, "What would Jesus do? What would Jesus do?" Now, what we have to understand is that this slogan and this token phrase was centered around the love aspect of the Bible only. This is the hippie version of the Jesus culture, which paints Jesus out to be this love bug prancing around like a hippie, sprinkling rainbows and sunshine everywhere he goes, right? How many of you know that is not in any way, shape, or form the reality of who or what Jesus' purpose was? Now, a lot of people also will identify and talk only about the fact that Jesus went to the cross and took beatings and took abuse. And if you are in a situation dealing with narcissists and you try to get help from a church or from a pastor, they'll throw that at you. Well, what would Jesus do? He took beatings and he took punches and he loved them. No. Understand something, that going to the cross was an event in and of itself, that Jesus willfully, on his own, according to the story, willfully went through. It was part of his purpose. It was a part of his mission to go through that. So he willed himself to be beaten and abused and to go hang on the cross. So unless you are willing yourself for that to take place in order for there to be some kind of a result, and in this case with Jesus, there was a result. The result was winning back his people, his believers, from sin, okay? So we're not going to pay attention to that because that was an event by itself that was a part of the purpose that only Jesus can fulfill. What we're going to look at when we talk about what would Jesus do is his ministry up to that point, all right? And there's three things that we can see as far as what would Jesus do in dealing with narcissists. I'm ready, all right? Because it's going to confirm and affirm for you that you're doing the right thing, all right? Number one, when Jesus dealt with narcissistically abusive people, and he did, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Romans, these people were constantly showing up as he was talking and preaching and teaching, and they were only there to accuse, abuse, blame, insult, smear his name, and throw stones at him. So what we see, what would Jesus do? Well, Jesus, first of all, would confront them on their bad behavior. He would confront them on their language. You can see Jesus in many instances pointing right back at them saying, "You are of your father, the devil." The devil was a liar from the beginning. His native language is lies, and that's who you are. And that's what you're doing. You're accusing me? You're a liar. He would put them in their place publicly. Understand something. Jesus wasn't about to let narcissistically abusive religious leaders interrupt his teaching. This is important to understand. As long as you are fulfilling your purpose in life and you're on the path that you're supposed to be on and it's resonating with people, then no one can stop you. And you can call people out for trying to stop you and become stumbling blocks. And that's how Jesus looked at narcissistically abusive people. He looked at them as stumbling blocks, trying to disrupt his teaching, trying to disrupt what people were learning. And Jesus had no problem calling them out. So that's the first thing Jesus would do. So for those of you who have called out the narcissist for their name calling, cussing, and abuse of you and said, "Stop it," and set boundaries, don't feel bad. Jesus would have done the same thing. Okay? Now the second thing, what would Jesus do? Jesus would often slip out of the situation if it got too toxic, Okay? Now here's the thing. When you call out narcissistically abusive people, it creates and causes narcissistic rage. Jesus experienced that too. When he would confront the toxic, abusive words of the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the narcissists, they would get angry, aggressive. They'd throw up stones, it said, to throw at him. Jesus would slip out of the situation. It says Jesus slipped out and he hid himself. He said, peace out. You guys are aggressive, hostile, nasty, vicious dogs. I'm out. Later. Right? And then he would exercise no contact and he would stay away from them. Okay? A lot of people get this idea, well, Jesus hung out with the sinners. Narcissists use that too. Jesus hung out with people like me. No, he didn't. Jesus did not hang out with abusive, narcissistic people who are out to hurt others. Jesus hung out with the sinners. Yes, the ones who were hurting and broken, the prostitutes, the depressed, the lonely. These are who Jesus hung out with and broke bread with. Not the narcissistically abusive people, right? And no, hurt people don't hurt people, right? We need to stop looking at narcissistically abusive people as necessarily hurting. Maybe at one time they were hurting, but they shut that hurt out. They turned off the vulnerability and are now instead taking their revenge out against the world and against you. That no longer qualifies as hurting. They're no longer there. Jesus was not for that. Jesus was for the people who are hurting, trying to figure out how to get along, how to heal, how to move on, and how to be healthy. Okay? And hurt people don't go out and hurt people. Hurt people want teaching and guidance. This is who Jesus was hanging out with. Jesus slipped away and hid from the aggressive, hostile people. No contact. So it's important for you to understand. So there's two things right away that we can see clearly. What would Jesus do with narcissists? One, confront them and say, stay away from my purpose. Stop trying to disrupt my path in life. Confront them. Number two, when they'd go into narcissistic rage, he would slip out and go no contact, and he'd hide from them, and he would have nothing to do with them. Number three, Jesus would ignore their demands and their commands to take part in what it was they were trying to do. Now, I've talked about this in another video, but there's a story of the Canaanite woman who was following Jesus and the disciples around, saying, please help. And she was basically coming across as commanding and demanding Jesus to help. Help me, I need your help. Jesus' response was to ignore her right away. Jesus showed that you don't just give in to people because they're demanding it of you. It's okay to ignore them when people want you for something. How many of you, when narcissistic family members or people are demanding you to be somewhere or do something their way, and how many of you have given in the past? Okay, I will. Again, that's not something that Jesus would do. Jesus plainly showed us that it's okay to ignore people when they're being demanding and commanding of your time and of your energy and of your effort. It wasn't until Jesus had a conversation with this Canaanite woman where she humbled herself and said, please. Then Jesus was moved, right, in the story, to help her out. Okay? So what do we get from this video as far as what would Jesus do? Hopefully this is affirming for you that your response to narcissistic abuse is more than appropriate. You can confront narcissists and by setting boundaries against their name calling, against their abusive language, against them trying to demean you, devalue you, publicly trying to derail you from your purpose in life. It's okay to confront them on that and say, stop. You're being wicked. You're being evil. It's okay to do that. Number two, that it's okay to go no contact. Slip away from the relationship. Hide from the relationship. Move away. Move out of the city, out of the state. Move away. Slip away from them. That's okay, because you don't need to be in their presence and make it a habit to try and hang out with abusive people. Jesus wasn't about that. Then number three, it's okay to ignore the demands and the commands of narcissistically abusive people who do not show you respect or courtesy or any love in return. You don't have to give in to them. So when people ask, what would Jesus do? There you have it. What Jesus would do. The model that was set before us. Obviously, like I said, we set aside the event that Jesus willfully went through, which was the beating and the crucifixion, and we just focus on his ministry and what that looked like. That's what Jesus would do. Jesus did deal with narcissistically abusive people, just like you and I do. So we can learn a lot from that. Hope you gained something from this video. Hope you're encouraged and you understand that it's okay for you to deal with the narcissist in a way that keeps your boundaries healthy and keeps you out of the drama. We'll be back with more videos right here on The Royal We.